Hello, my name is Sergey Garber, and I'm here with Andrea Hush. She is a licensed attorney in the state of Florida, real estate attorney, as a matter of fact. And we just want to go over a situation. I get across a lot of sellers that have houses with existing mortgage. And only way I can buy that property if we keep existing mortgage in place. If I have to go out and borrow private funds, I cannot pay the price they're looking for. So here's the example. We have a $100,000 house there with $80,000 mortgage, and the seller will be walking away with $20,000 of equity in their pocket. So can I do the transaction like that? Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Sure. Thank you, Sergey. Thanks for asking me these questions. As well as being a real estate attorney, I also work with Commonwealth Trust Services. In that role, I'm also an investor. I work with a lot of investors, and in that role, I've purchased properties that way, and I've helped a lot of other investors purchase properties that way by using a tool called a land trust. Now, what you're talking about is commonly referred to as purchasing a property subject to the mortgage, or basically taking over the payments on someone else's mortgage. That's done all the time. It's not illegal. Transactions are done this way in all over the state of Florida, and I'm sure many other states. What worries sellers with these types of transactions is that there is a clause in probably every mortgage that's called a due on sale clause. And what that clause basically says is that the mortgagee, who is the bank, may call the loan due, accelerate that mortgage and call it due if the property is actually transferred from the current mortgagor or owner. So that worries a lot of sellers because they're afraid, hey, if I sell my property to you and the bank decides to accelerate it, first of all, a lot of sellers think that it's going to happen, that the bank will do it or has to do it. They don't have to do it. It's a may clause. But when that transaction goes on public record, there is a risk there. So with a land trust, the way that unique and very exciting tool works for investors is that the seller actually places the property into trust. And they can do that even with a mortgage on the property because there is an exception to this due on sale clause rule, I guess, that a seller or an owner may place their property into trust for estate planning purposes. And a land trust is like any other trust, a revocable trust, like most estate planning tools or trusts are. So the seller places the property into the trust, and that's the deed, the transfer deed that goes on public record. So as far as a mortgage company knows, the seller has then, the owner, has placed their property into a trust. And that trust, actually a land trust, is also often used for estate planning because you can name a successor beneficiary. But what can also happen is within the trust is there can be another transfer that's private. And that's done with another document called an assignment of the beneficial interest. Just to break that down a little bit more, when you place your property into trust, the owner then becomes the beneficiary of the trust. They have all the power of direction in that trust to tell the trustee what they want to be done. And they can also then transfer the property privately. They can transfer that asset. So when they then transfer it to the investor, they can leave that mortgage in place with no fear of, the bank calling and saying, hey, we see that you've transferred this, you've actually changed the control of this property, you've given that to someone else. So that alleviates that fear.
So let me see if I got it right. So the seller on the public records just looks like a seller just placed it in a land trust for their estate planning purposes, and there is nothing else happens in the public records.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Exactly.
Okay.
So from that point forward, then your trustee, which for our clients, of course, it's Commonwealth Trust Services, as trustee of the 123 Main Street Land Trust, is now the title owner of that property. Now that property could get transferred within the trust, under the blanket of the trust, through the assignment of beneficial interest several different times. The ownership could change. And those things are done privately. So as far as the public knows, the ownership remains the same in the trustee.
Awesome. And it's perfectly legal. It's done all throughout the Florida.
Yep. And there are actually 5 other states in the country that have land trust statutes on the books that allow, that specifically spell out how land trusts work. Now, 49 out of 50 states have revocable trust provisions that a land trust is based on. So we can actually do trusts in a lot of states like this.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that. So this is in a nutshell how the transaction can happen.